May 1986. I read some books. I'm Eric Smith. This is Reading Remembrances, and I'm talking about the books I've read in the past. I have a big long list, and this is just one notebook I have filled with all the books I've read since 1985, and I'm up to May of 1986. And the first book I read that month was a book called Men in Arms by John Crosby. And I don't remember anything about this book. I had to look it up. A professor of medieval history, for some reason, is asked by the CIA to follow some guy, and he gets caught in a crossfire. You can see I'm reading my notes. Caught in a crossfire between arms dealers, the PLO, the Mossad, and the Mafia. I don't remember anything about it. Sounds like a thriller. Typical thriller. I don't know. I mean, not remembering it must mean it's not great, not horrible. There you go, Men in Arms. Second book of May 1986, Necessity by Brian Garfield. This is basically Sleeping with the Enemy. Our main character is a woman who gets some fake IDs and takes off across the country and takes flying lessons, very important, but she's on the run from her husband. She does save her original actual driver's license. I'm assuming she's going to fake her own death, and she needs that driver's license so they can identify the body. Don't remember much about this, but Brian Garfield is the author of Death Wish, which was made into the Charles Bronson movie, of course. The sequel, which was not just called Death Wish 2, it was called something else, but I don't recall. Both of those were great books. He wrote Hopscotch, which was also made into a movie. And I believe I also read that one. Good author, so I'm assuming, again, that this was a good book. I remember Death Wish and Death Wish 2 more than I remember this. But I dig Brian Garfield. Number 3, Nathaniel by John Saul. If you've read any John Saul book, you've read Nathaniel. That's been my feeling for a long time about John Saul's work. But I have not read a lot of it. The first book I read was The God Project. I thought that was really good, and that's the one that was different. Following that, I read a few more, and they all seemed to follow the same formula, which was basically 100 years ago, sometime in the past, but usually like 100 years ago, a young child or a young kid, however you want to put it, dies in some way. They're either being bullied and die in an accident, or something else happens. Anyway, a kid dies. Cut to the modern day. A new family has moved into town. They have a kid that's the same age. And that kid gets possessed by the spirit of the dead kid. Or does he? Who knows? Oh my God. I don't know. Nathaniel might have been the last John Saul I read, because after the God Project, like 1, 2, 3 in a row, just all felt exactly the same. Not that John Saul is a bad writer. The writing style was fine. It was just the same thing over and over again. If you have other thoughts about it, please let me know. Number 4, Proof by Dick Francis. Dick Francis is a mystery writer. I believe like most of his books, I could be completely wrong because I have not read a lot of them, but I feel like most of his books had to do with horse racing or that world. But this one, even though the cover that I saw on Amazon seemed to show people at the track, the description says it's about a wine dealer who's throwing some sort of party or something, and some hitmen come in and cause havoc, and he wants to know why and gets involved in some mystery. Completely nothing about it inside my head. I've read maybe 2 or 3 Dick Francis, not somebody who stuck with me. Number 5, Icebound, the Viking Cipher, Book 1 by Rick Spencer. This is the first in a series of books. I believe there's 5, and they're sort of like men's adventure books. I love the covers. The original covers anyway. Just, they're cheap paperbacks with garish action-packed covers. There was always like a central picture and then some little couple pictures on each side, showing scenes, all sorts of, and sexy ladies and stuff. Um, and I distinctly remember uh, in the town of North Ridgeville, Ohio, there was a movie theater in this strip, and a lot of the stores in that strip would change owners and change the type of store and everything they were. And there was a store there. I'm not really sure what you would call it. I just remember we would go there a lot to get candy to sneak into the theater, because even way back then, candy prices were too high. But they did have books there, and I remember distinctly buying these books at that particular place. Seems like an odd thing for them to have there, because it wasn't a bookstore and these weren't best-selling novels. But anyway, I enjoyed them for what they were. Very pulp fun, lots of sex and action. And the idea, as I remember it, is these scientists came up with this program that could predict the future. Sort of, I'm not sure how else to describe it. Basically, they could input all the information that they have, and extrapolating from everything that's ever happened in the history of the world. I don't remember how much information they put into it. It could predict anything they wanted, based on the information. And of course, bad guys want it. People want to use it to further their own aims or take over the world or whatever. And the main character is Eric Iverson, and he's the guy that's going out there and saving the world and getting the ladies. But I seem to recall they were fun. I saw when I was looking this up that there's some on eBay, and I might, if I can get those old covers, because there are new editions apparently. I saw some new covers, but I'd really want those old covers. I'm tempted to pick those up again and read them again. Finally, number 6 in May of 1986 is Hitchcock in Prime Time. It was edited by Francis M. Nevins Jr. and Martin Harry Greenberg. I'm used to seeing his name as just Martin H. Greenberg. I don't know why this one said Harry. But anyway, Martin H. Greenberg. I have tons of stuff from, I think, the 80s and 90s that was edited by Martin H. Greenberg. But anyway, Hitchcock in Prime Time is essentially 20 short stories that were the basis for episodes of Alfred Hitchcock Presents and possibly the Alfred Hitchcock Hour. That's what it was called. I loved Alfred Hitchcock Presents. They're typically stories with a twist. Not quite Twilight Zone, because I don't think there was any science fiction. There was no supernatural. Usually it was some sort of either human drama or crime or something. But anyway, this is a book I wouldn't mind reading again, because, again, love those kinds of stories. And it's not a huge book, 20 stories. They can't be that long. Should be a quick read. And apparently, again, I look all these up unless I absolutely remember a ton about them. And apparently, after each story, there was a little something by each author talking about what they thought of the episode that was made of their stories. That would be interesting for me to read. And that's it. 6 books in May of 1986. One note, that was an awkward pause, but I'm not going to cut it out because I don't want to do this whole thing again. One note for anybody who's watching this series. Next week, do not be surprised when you see that we have jumped to July of 1986. There is no June in 1986. Anyone who was alive back then will tell you June didn't exist that year. Actually, at the end of May, literally the day after Memorial Day in May, I went into the Air Force. So June, all of June, I was in basic training and got to read nothing. Basically all of June and half of July. So July is going to be a short month next week. And yeah, even if I'd had the time, because we did have some downtime eventually, we were not allowed to read anything. other than our handbooks. So no June of 1986 because I was busy learning how to be part of the Air Force. That's it. That's all I got for this episode of Reading Remembrances. If you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you feel that John Saul wrote more different stories than what I described, other than the God Project, to me, it's the God Project, and every other book he wrote is what I described. But you can set me straight. I haven't read a lot of his stuff. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are other books of his that I should be reading. But that's it. Just let's talk in the comments. Be polite. We need that more in this world. That's all I've got. And until next time, read more books.